Good morning and welcome to NAMI NJ's webinar series. My name is Marcel Esteves and I am the Customer Service and Communication Assistant. Today's topic is Grateful and Present, 5 Tools to Help Make the Season Joyous. 2020 has been an interesting year to say the least. And with the holidays coming up, NAMI NJ realized it could be difficult to be grateful and present. So many of us have lost loved ones, and the holidays will never be the same without them. Even our holiday traditions will not be the same this year due to social distancing restrictions. However, we hope that this webinar brings you and your loved ones some hope and joy. We are honored to have our distinguished speaker, Melissa Fine, joining us today. Melissa Fine is a yoga therapist certified by the International Association of Yoga Therapists, as well as a 500-hour registered yoga teacher. Melissa stepped on a yoga mat for the first time at the age of 43. And only because the teacher and studio owner was a dear friend, within 6 months she became a regular practitioner and began to notice ways that she was changing, physically as well as emotionally and spiritually. The next step was to become a certified teacher, and then a series of events led her to begin the 3-year and 1,000-hour training to become a yoga therapist. Her background is in social services and the hospitality industry, blend with yoga therapy to offer vast experience with listening, problem solving, quick thinking, as well as compassion and a desire to help others live their best lives. She lives in Lambertville, New Jersey, with her husband and 3 sons, and has a private practice right in town where she specializes in yoga therapy for stress and anxiety. Melissa, we are grateful that you're here and we look forward to your presentation. I will now pass it on to you. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really glad to be here and share these tools to help make the season joyous. Before we get started, if everyone could just take a moment, take a deep breath or two, let your shoulders relax, unclench the jaw, and be in the moment. Why not start practicing being present right off the bat? Okay, next slide. Okay, so today we're going to be going over a few things. What is yoga and what is yoga therapy? A little information about the yoga philosophy teachings, some information about energetic anatomy, specifically the koshas, then into the 5 tools, and then a conclusion and some questions and answers at the end. Next. Okay, what is yoga? So yoga in Sanskrit translates directly into yoke or union, and that's referring to our relationship, our connection between our self, small s self, and self, big S self. Most of what we think of as yoga in the Western world, what we see practiced regularly, is focused on the physical, on the poses, the postures, which are the asana. And there are actually 8 limbs of yoga. The poses are just one part, but that tends to be what we see the most of in the Western culture, in class settings, in gyms, and in studios. There's a lot more to the practice of yoga, and some teachers do touch on that and bring that into the class setting, but usually it's focused on the asana. The circle with a slash and the headstand was my husband's addition to the slide, because I'm a very strong believer that one does not need to be super flexible or be able to stand on your head to practice yoga. There is yoga accessible to everyone, so handstand not required. Next. Okay, so what is yoga therapy? The official definition of yoga therapy is the process of empowering individuals to progress towards improved health and well-being through the application of the teachings and practices of yoga. Okay, so yoga therapy unlike a classroom setting, is conducted one-on-one in more of an office-like setting. And there are some physical poses involved, but it uses all 8 limbs of yoga, which include breathing techniques, meditation, self-reflection, looking at our relationship to ourselves, to others, to the world around us, our habits. It's becoming more widely viewed as a practice that can be worked with in cooperation with Western medicine. And there are insurances who are now starting to reimburse for sessions, which is pretty exciting. There aren't a ton of us. It's sort of a new practice. There are about, to give you an idea, about 2,000 yoga teachers registered with the Yoga Alliance in the state of New Jersey alone, yet there are only about 5,700 certified yoga therapists worldwide. Give you a little of an idea that it's a little more intense and a little less common. Okay, next. Okay, so here we have a little graphic that describes the 8 limbs of yoga, as I mentioned earlier. So we have the asana, which are the poses or the postures, as the 3rd limb. And there are 7 others that cover, like I said, virtues or universal moralities, personal observances, working with the breath, control of the senses, immovable concentration, meditation on the divine, and our absolute bliss. So the philosophical teachings that work through these limbs focus on mental discernment, which refers to us examining our wisdom, our perceptions, and our insights. Detachment from results. This is a tough one. Here we study the concept of doing just for the sake of doing and not receiving compensation or praise, stepping away from our ego. This is a tough one. A little funny story. This is like it was mentioned in my intro. I have 3 sons and a husband. I also have a dog who's a boy. My sons are 21, 21, and 16. So I basically live in a frat house. A good example of the detachment from results would be spending all day cooking a really nice meal for the family, having everyone home. And then I get, Mom, I have band practice. Mom, I have plans. I'm not hungry. How I internalize or react to that experience and able to just let that go and not have my feelings hurt or be upset. That's detachment from results. I'm cooking that meal just for the sake of cooking that meal for my family. The spiritual development has us focus on the development of our personal relationship to our spiritual selves. So this is not necessarily based on religion. It can be simply our relationship with whatever we hold dear, whatever we see as the divine, but also a relationship to community. So this can be really important right now because we're feeling separate from our community in a lot of instances and not really connected. So connecting to our spiritual selves, our ultimate divine, as well as our community, is something that we look at here. And then self-awareness, here we're studying who we really are when societal norms and expectations are removed. So this can be, you might be a teacher because you were expected to follow a certain path, get a certain job, but you always wanted to be a trapeze artist. These are the kind of things that we really dig at. We kind of forget who we can be, who our true selves are when we take away the expectations and the norms. This is also not an easy thing to look at, but these are the philosophies and some of the teachings that we focus on within yoga and yoga therapy. And I'm walking through this a little bit just to give an example and some idea of how we get from a 4,000-year-old ancient practice into things that we can do, tools that are simple things to implement into our daily life now. So there's a path that we're following here to get to this. Okay, next. Okay, the elements of energetic anatomy. So this is a little foreign to most people. I'm just going to, again, mention a few of these things to give an idea of how we use those philosophical teachings using the concepts of energetic anatomy to get into the everyday. So the energetic anatomy these are the energy systems throughout the body, and understanding these systems can allow us to fine-tune our health on a deeper level, improve our physical, emotional, and spiritual balance. Okay, so again, I know this is foreign to a lot of people, but it's just an interesting way to see how we progress. So many people have actually heard of chakras. There are 7 energy wheels that run along the spine from the base of the spine to the crown of the head. I'm not going to get into, I could do a whole 3-hour thing just on that. So I'm just mentioning it to give you an overview. Chakra in Sanskrit translates into wheel. The bandhas, bandha means to bind or hold captive in Sanskrit, and these are energy seals, 3 energy seals throughout the body. We're going to skip the koshas for now. The gunas are 3 subtle qualities that underline all of creation. Pranavayu, prana means life force or vital energy, and vayu means wind. So this is referring to the direction of the energy within the body, the direction of the life force. Okay, the koshas, which are where we're going to focus today, are layers that cover our innermost light, like an onion. Okay, kosha translates into the word sheath, and the koshas must be united and blended to achieve complete wholeness and illumination. Next. Okay, so here we go into the koshas. On the left, on the graphic, oh, next slide. Awesome, thank you. Okay, on the left, we have the Sanskrit name for the kosha, and then underneath a little bit in English, so I put it more on the side so we can talk about that. The outermost layers are physical body. That's what we eat, how we move, what we see of as the body, the physical. The next layer in is our energetic body. That's our breath, our body energy, our prana. Next, we have the mental and emotional body, how we feel and what we think. Then onto the wisdom or intuitive body, and this is our true self. This is our gut feeling, our wisdom, and using our intuition. When we really listen to what we know, that's the wisdom body. And then the bliss body is the innermost. That is what all of these layers are covering, our connection with self. So the tools that we're going to get into in a moment are all based on these koshas, from the most gross to the most subtle, outermost to the inner. And this is, again, following that path, how we got from this philosophy into these teachings, into the energetic systems, into a specific energetic system, into ways that we can improve our well-being today. Okay, next. All right, so 2 things before we get into the tools. First of all, I know that I said earlier that yoga therapy is non-prescriptive, right? It's one-on-one, working specifically with the person on their specific goals and objectives. Obviously, right now, I can't do that because I'm talking into a phone to many people who I can't interact with. And so that being said, some of these tools may not apply to you, and I totally understand that. If you can take 1 or 2 things from this that are useful for you and can serve you, that's great, because it's a much more general view we're taking here. I totally understand that. So that being said, the key, or one of the keys to staying present, which then supports us feeling gratitude, is to focus on the things that we can control. There's a lot going on right now in the world, everyone, that we cannot control. We know this. There's a lot. More than, it's always like that, more than usual right now. So what we can control can help us stay in the present and stay focused, doing what we can to improve our health and well-being. So we've got some simple, but not always easy tools that you can do daily or when it works for you to support that. And I'm going to get into each one specifically. I'm not great at acronyms, so the best I could come up with here was me back, thinking that, okay, I've lost myself to stress, I'm overwhelmed, not functioning at my highest capacity, I need to get me back. Kind of corny, but maybe it'll work. We've got move, eat, breathe, affirm, and calm. So we're going to go through each of those. And again, these each follow one of the layers through the koshas to bring us to our ultimate higher self and our bliss. Okay, next. All right, move. So I'm going to talk for a second first about the distinction that I feel between movement and exercise. So like was said in my intro, that I never stepped on a yoga mat until I was 43. I was not a gym person, did not enjoy working out, but yoga changed all of that. And I think one of the reasons is because there's no goal per se. Like maybe, yeah, you want to stand on your head, like I mentioned before, but you're not counting calories. There's no, I did 30 minutes on the elliptical. It's personal, and it's all about improving how you're feeling and your quality of life in that moment. So the distinction here now, if you have an amazing exercise routine that's working for you and this does not apply, by all means. If you're a little more sedentary and dread exercise or really find it to be torturous, then maybe something here can apply to you and can give you a little oomph. So I find that the term exercise tends to function out of a punishment and reward kind of a mindset. I ate the cake, I have to go to the gym. Or I went to the gym, I can eat the cake. It's not movement for the sake of movement. Again, detachment from the result, right? So there's no yoga at the Olympics for a reason, right? It's personal, like I said before. And there's a lot of health benefits to movement just based on the joints alone. So as we can see in the slide, movement is medicine, which I truly believe. It's also a gift that we are able to move when we can. So if you ever wake up in the morning, a little stiff, creaky joints, feeling a little tight, part of the reason for that is that while you were sleeping, the synovial fluid, which is a lubricant in your joints, is sedentary, it's not moving. The minute we start moving the joints, even just clenching a fist, unclenching, that fluid begins to circulate through the joint. So sometimes you might feel really stiff and tight joints in the morning first thing, and then after moving a little bit starts to loosen up and whatever, and that's based on the circulation of that synovial fluid. So super important. Another thing that's super important is to move the spine in all 6 directions. So our spine is obviously made up of lots of tiny little vertebrae, little fragile bones, housing, really important stuff. So keeping that spine healthy and moving, the synovial fluid isn't as much of a thing within the vertebrae. That's more about the discs and keeping space and not compressing those joints and the discs. Moving the spine in all 6 directions is comprised of moving, twisting, okay, the full spine to each direction, just to the extent that you can. It doesn't have to look a certain way. Both directions. Bending to the side in both directions, folding forward, and then arching back. Shoulders back, careful of not letting the weight of the head put any tension on the neck or the cervical spine. So the main benefits from this can be achieved if you hold each pose, each twist, bend, whatever, for 3 to 5 breaths. Just doing this in the morning first thing or at some point during the day, preferably the morning, can really help with back pain, stiffness, tightness in the shoulders, and the lower back especially. Folding forward is great if you can do that standing into a full forward fold. If you're concerned about blood pressure or dizziness, it can be done seated. It can also be done holding onto a chair. So you want to make sure you're careful with this. But moving that spine can really, really make a difference. It also, movement of any kind really will jumpstart the lymphatic system, which is one of the few systems of the body that doesn't have its own pump. Lymph nodes don't pump on their own. They need movement to get that going. So I found a really good quote on this by Ido Portal that says, "The body will become better at whatever you do or don't do. You don't move, the body will make you better at not moving. If you move, your body will allow more movement." Thought that was pretty good. So movement for the sake of movement can literally just be dancing around the kitchen in your pajamas to your favorite song. That's movement. Heart rate is getting up, you're moving your joints, you are getting the muscles moving a little bit. It can be raking leaves, walking the dog. It doesn't have to be exercise. So please keep that distinction in mind moving forward, and just consider ways that you can move your body and get a little fluid pumping every day. Okay, next. Okay, eat. So we all have to eat, right? And we can control what we eat to a degree. I'm not eating lobster every day. That's out of my control, but I can control the quality of what I'm eating to a degree. One of my recommendations here is to eat seasonally. Obviously, that depends on where you live, but in the Northeast here in New Jersey, that's a pretty easy thing to accomplish. I'm not a doctor, obviously, and I'm not an Ayurvedist, but there's a reason why we tend to enjoy foods that fit into the season differently at different times of year. So watermelon, in my experience, tastes better in July than in January. Because our body craves those seasonal foods if we live in that kind of in that region, based on their crisp. There's a lot of water. They're very hydrating, like watermelon, lettuces, berries, those kinds of summer things that we enjoy then, as opposed to now this time of year focusing on root vegetables, squashes, those kinds of foods that need to be roasted, cooked at low temperature, braised. There's also moisture involved there. We look for stews and soups and hearty, wholesome comfort foods this time of year. So that's always a good default to keep in mind. And the other thing about seasonal eating, if you have access to farm stands and those kinds of things, you're getting things at the height of their nutritional value. So there's a lot more nutrient in fresh peaches from the farm stand in July or June, whenever they're seasonal, than getting them from the supermarket when they're imported from somewhere else. So the nutrient level is also a factor. Avoid fads. So I say this, if you are working with a keto plan or paleo or intermittent fasting or whatever, and it's working for you, by all means, keep going. I'm not saying not to do it. I'm just saying keep in mind when you investigate these fads, what actually feels good for you. And I don't mean feel good like Ben and Jerry's, binging Netflix feel good. That's a different kind of feel good. There's room for that too. But I mean, really gives you energy, helps your digestion, just feels good. And when you eat things that don't make you feel weighed down and sluggish. So just keep that in mind as you're looking into, or if you're looking into different eating options, keeping those fads in mind. Avoiding chemicals and artificial sweeteners, kind of a no-brainer, but one of the things when I was teaching my kids about making food choices and cooking for them when they were younger was to keep in mind if it was a food that their great-great-grandparents would have recognized as a food. If so, probably okay to eat. Not always, but probably. And to really keep things as in their natural form as possible. Obviously cooked, but just keeping those things to a minimum. Eating foods high in antioxidants, obviously that's always a good idea, especially good right now, keep the immune system going. Using spices that support the immune system, turmeric, ginger, garlic, those kinds of things. Easy to research, and just adding a little bit extra, even if it's just to give yourself a little more peace of mind that you're supporting your immune system, can be really beneficial and helpful with our stress current day. If you're not sure about food, or if you don't know what makes you feel good or makes you have smooth digestion and those kinds of things, keeping a food journal is a really, really great way to track that. Not in a, oh, I shouldn't have eaten that way, or not a good or bad, but just interesting, just notice. Oh, today I ate this and this and I felt great. Yesterday I felt really sluggish and maybe I ate more carbs or not enough protein or not enough fiber. And if you notice these things over time, it can help you develop a food plan or a system or menu of dishes that really support your well-being and you're feeling good. We have to eat anyway. Why not eat things that really help us and support us? And then avoid food shame. There are going to be days, like I said, that Ben and Jerry's is calling. It's okay. It happens. It doesn't make you a bad person or have to run off to CrossFit, right? It happens. So making ourselves feel bad about the food choices that we make just, again, adds to feeling overwhelmed, feeling negative, feeling lousy about ourselves. So nix the food shame, start again tomorrow. Next. Okay, breathe. Another thing that we all have to do. So the pretty cool thing about our breath is that it is the only part of our nervous system that we can control. Pretty cool. I'm going to teach you in a moment the 3-part breath. If you're familiar with it, great, keep practicing it. What this does is, if you, I'm sure most people are familiar with the concept of fight or flight. So fight or flight is what happens if we're in a danger, something scary happens, and our adrenaline pumps, our cortisol starts pumping, heart rate goes up. And this is great if you're being chased by a wild animal. If you're not, it's not so great. These things can all be, this can happen, fight or flight response to just stress, right? If you're worried about finances, job security, family members' health, your own health, any everyday stress can trigger that fight or flight. Again, super handy if you're being chased by a tiger, but in everyday life, those chemicals, the adrenaline and the cortisol that are released into our system, can really take a toll. Having an elevated heart rate for all that time is not great for the heart. It elevates the blood pressure, not great. Puts a toll on those organs. And the worst news of all, kind of, is that increased level of cortisol can make us gain weight in our sleep. Crap. So what can happen is, if we are in that constant fight or flight, and there's cortisol in our system when we're sleeping, our body is going to try really, really hard to protect us and keep us safe because it thinks we're in danger. So it will turn things into fat, store fat, hold on to fat unnecessarily because it's trying to, help us out. So this breathing technique, I will not get into my personal experience with this, but I can tell you firsthand, after a pretty horrific dental situation, that 5-7 minutes of this breathing practice took my blood pressure from pretty elevated to normal in a pretty high stress situation. So I promise it works. I'm not just saying that. In order to do this, so I'm going to have you, we're going to do it real quick. I'm going to walk you through it now while I've got you, so that you can go back and practice this at a later point. So the first step of the 3 parts, I'm going to place the hands on the abdomen, and this is okay to do seated. It's a little easier to learn lying down. So if you want to lie down and listen to me and try it that way, that's great. You can still do it seated, and you can do this in any situation. You're going to start with hands on the abdomen and take a nice deep breath into the abdomen. You want to move the hand. So if you're seated, the hands will come away from the spine. If you're lying down, the hands will lift towards the ceiling. So you're breathing directly into the hands, into the abdomen. Okay, and the next part, step 2, hands come to the sides of the rib cage. The intercostal muscles are the muscles in between the ribs here on the side. So you're going to breathe into the rib cage, so your hands will come out to the side with the inhale. And then contract back in as you exhale. And try that a couple of times. And then the third part is the chest. So hands come to the chest. As we inhale, hands lift. And exhale, they lower. Okay, so the next part here is to bring all those pieces together, breathing in to the belly, the intercostal muscles, and the chest like a wave, and then exhaling the same way, chest, rib cage, abdomen. So 3 to 5 rounds of this in a very slow, quiet way can flip that sympathetic, parasympathetic, fight or flight into the rest or digest. So this is something that is a great tool in a moment, in a stressful moment, but just practicing this to calm down before bed or to ground yourself and be present in the moment just upon waking or on a lunch break, even if you're not feeling super stressed in the moment, practicing this can just kind of increase that level of calm, and practicing deep breathing regularly can dramatically improve lung function. So this is something, 3 to 5 rounds, it'll take just a few minutes, can bring you into the moment, calm the nerves, and improve the lung function. Okay, next. Okie doke, affirm. So an affirmation is a positive phrase or statement that we use to challenge negative and unhelpful thoughts. So I'm sure we've all heard of affirmations, right? And may or may not use them. They're also, and here I also have the word mantra on this slide. A mantra is similar, not exactly the same, but you can use the term either way. So self-talk plays a huge role in our emotional state. It just does. We tell ourselves negative things about ourselves, about the world, about others, and they become true. Our brain remembers them as true because we said it, so it must be true. Okay? So the affirmation can undo that truth and create a new truth. It just has to happen. We have to repeat it. It has to be on a regular basis, just like the negative can be on a regular basis. So using an affirmation on a regular basis, repeating it to ourselves 3 to 5 times, multiple times over the course of the day as needed, can decrease our stress, can help us tune into our feelings, increase our optimism, and supports cognitive restructuring, which is a fancy way what I just said about what we believe to be true based on what we're telling ourselves. We can restructure that belief and that system. So developing a personal mantra or an affirmation can be an I statement. I am calm. I am healthy. I am stress-free. Any of those things. It can have multiple phrases, multiple parts, or it can just be a string of words that represent something to you that you want to bring into your space or have be true for you. Gratitude, abundance, and peace. That's actually one that I use daily. You're welcome to use it, but it can really be anything that's going to, and it doesn't have to be the same thing all the time, every day. Mix it up. Some days you may be feeling, pretty grateful, but need a boost in another area, right? You need to be calm, or you need to be stress-free or relaxed. So I'm going to zip it for about literally just a minute and give you a chance to come up with one now. Well, again, while I have you here, you can write it down or just commit it to memory. And I'm just going to close my mouth. Okay, that probably wasn't a minute, but I don't want to use up too much time. So another way that we can affirm ourselves or work on that connection, this self-awareness, and work on the connection to our true self is through journaling. People resist journaling a lot. I know I've come across several clients who are not comfortable with it or have a hard time getting started. We often think, I don't want to write the wrong thing, or it's like the first blank page in a book, like, oh, what do I say? Or it's just uncomfortable or awkward. Or what if someone reads it? Whatever. So you can still do it. If you're worried someone's going to read it, write it and then put it in the shredder just to get it out. There's a lot to be said for getting those feelings out and onto paper. Can make a really big difference. And if you're not sure what to write, you can just start with a prompt. I feel ... or I am grateful for ... or I'm really upset because ... You could even Google journaling prompts. There are zillions of them. Or you can just write what comes to mind, just an absolute brain dump. Put the pen on the paper, don't pick it up for 5 minutes, and see what happens. It's a practice that I started while I was in my yoga therapy training and never really thought it would be that big of a deal. I didn't have a resistance to it, but I never expected it to really be impactful. And I found it to be a really nice way to start the day sort of with a clear, fresh, empty head. Like, get whatever was on there on my mind, just get it out and move along. So that it can be really beneficial. And the affirmation can be a part of that, or it can be a separate thing. Your journaling can just be affirmation. It's a great way to do that cognitive restructuring, teach yourself a new truth based on that journaling and that affirmation work. So, okay, next. Calm. So as you can see, like I said a million times, we've gone through these layers, these koshas, into our innermost. So here we get to the tough stuff, meditation. So there's an ancient saying that I absolutely love that says you should sit in meditation for 20 minutes a day unless you're too busy, and then you should sit for an hour. Pretty good. Love that one. Okay. Meditation is accessible. People resist a lot of times. I find, again, meditation. I can't meditate. I can't sit still. It's too hard. It hurts my back. I can't focus, whatever. Everyone can meditate. You can't do it wrong. Just trying to meditate, you're doing it right. There are lots of different types of meditation. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. It's a really great way to stay present and focused. 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be, an hour long sitting on a rock in the middle of, whatever. It's in your own space. 5 minutes really can make a big difference. So several different types. Ultimately, the 4,000 years ago, the ancient practitioners, their goal to reach samadhi, which is the ultimate bliss. The goal is there, to completely clear your mind, not a thought, just blank, nothing. Okay. I'm here to tell you that's probably not going to happen. The jibber jabber comes in. It's always going to do that. That's fine. You want to let the jibber jabber come in, move along. Back to the focus. So all of the types of meditation that I've listed have some element that distracts you from the jibber jabber using one or more of your senses. So in a guided meditation, you're listening. So you are distracted that way. If you're using your affirmation or your mantra, you're repeating something to yourself, and that is distracting the senses. Walking meditation, same thing. You're focusing on picking up your feet one at a time, gently laying them down. Focus on that process. Candle gazing, the distraction there is visual. If you want to try that, you can feel free to look it up. The best way to do that is in a darkened space and have a candle at about eye level, focusing on just the spot where the flame hits the air. Again, that's a visual distraction. Yoga Nidra translates into yogic sleep, and that is a very specific type of guided meditation. There's a lot available on YouTube, and that puts you into a space right before you're about to fall asleep and kind of hovers you there, which is really great for your systems to kind of regenerate, great for the body, super relaxing. Highly recommend. You can also find plenty of guided meditations available on all those services to try. Japa meditation, which, if you can see my mala beads here, Japa meditation, you hold the beads between the middle finger and the forefinger and move them with the thumb to count them. Again, distracting yourself with the counting. So all of these styles and types of meditation are there to give you a way to focus, bring yourself inward without having to just have blank, nothing, because that's really, really challenging to do. So 5 minutes a day, again, can make a big difference. You can work that up from 5, add a minute every week to try. It's been proven, studies have shown that shorter but more frequent meditation has a greater result than doing it less often, but for longer. So factor that in. That can be a great way. So we're going to try that Now, I'm going to do a really brief meditation. I'm going to speak. If you get up and go get a cup of coffee, I'll never know. But if you're willing to give it a try, I recommend it. I'm going to speak for just a minute or so and then leave a teeny space for quiet. During that quiet, try repeating the affirmation and see if you can focus on that and minimize the jibber jabber. Like I said, the to-do list, whatever, it's all going to come in. You can just return back to that affirmation when that happens, because it will happen. So if you are willing to give this a shot, you can do this seated wherever you are or laying down, whatever is comfortable. No one can see you. So like I said, I will talk for a minute or so and then leave a little room for silence to practice with the affirmation. And then I will ding a little chime at the end and then invite you to come back into the space. Okay, so when you're comfortable, take a couple of breaths. Close your eyes if that's comfortable for you, or a soft gaze towards the end of your nose. Check in with your shoulders. Are they relaxed? Relax the neck, the back of the head, top of the head, the forehead, eyebrows, and relax the cheeks and the jaw. And inhale peace and calm. And exhale any tension or stress. Slowing the breath. Repeating the affirmation. Okay, welcome back. If anyone stuck around with me and didn't run to the restroom, thank you. And FYI, you just meditated. So it really is accessible and a great way to calm the nervous system and stay in the moment. Okay, next. Okay, so just going to review a couple of quick things. Here we go back from this, what is yoga therapy, to these philosophical teachings and the energetic anatomy, and then trickle down through the koshas and each of these five tools that seem pretty basic, pretty simple. But if we use them as tools, not only to stay present and stay grateful, but also for self-reflection, dig a little deeper and utilize those philosophical teachings. All of them are utilized with these five tools. So it can be as simple as choosing to eat an apple instead of a cupcake, but we can also dig deeper and learn about ourselves with each of these tools. And like I said before, one of the best ways to stay present and really be in the moment with what we have and who we are is to focus on these things that we really can control. So it doesn't have to be a daily practice, but it could be. And if you spent 10 to 15 minutes a day moving, right? Not necessarily exercising, just moving, literally dancing around the kitchen, being noticeable, noticing the joints, and just noticing how the body feels and being in tune with the body, 5 to 10 minutes. 5 minutes of food journaling, or just noticing what's going on there, how you're feeling with your food choices, the energy level, etc. 5 minutes practicing that 3-part breathing. 5 minutes, either repeating your affirmation over a couple times over the course of the day, a minute here, a minute there, or 5 to 10 minutes of journaling. And then 5 minutes of meditation. You can really hit on all of these tools with 30 to 45 minutes of your day. I know we're all busy, I get it. But just that little bit of time for yourself, that extra, like I said, 30 to 45 minutes can really make a difference. And it might be worth giving a shot for a week and see what happens. See if you notice anything, if you feel a little more present, if you feel more calm, if you're able to find joy in things that maybe weren't so joyful before, or make the best of situations that are difficult. That could be really beneficial. So that being said, I think there may be questions. I think we've got about 10 minutes. So ladies, if there's questions, let me know. Or if you have people.
Yes. Thank you, Melissa. We have some questions from our participants. One of the questions is, will yoga help with arthritis in my hip? Will yoga help?
It definitely can. I actually have pretty bad arthritis in both of my knees, and I had one surgery. It helped quite a bit. If you, the hips are tough. Hip opening poses can be really beneficial. Go easy. If you're not a regular yoga practitioner, I highly recommend that you either find someone to work with, or if you're going to go the YouTube route, be very careful and choose either a sequence that's titled specifically for what you're looking for arthritis in the hips, or gentle yoga. I get nervous about people who are new to yoga just hopping on YouTube just for safety reasons. And if something doesn't feel right, don't do it. So just be very careful and listen to your body, but it can definitely help.
Yeah, thank you. And what is the best time to meditate, night or morning?
That's a great question. That's really personal. I would say try both and see what seems to have the biggest impact, or if one or the other is harder time for you, if you have a really hard time falling asleep, then maybe at night would be a good time to try. Or if you have a hard time getting going in the morning, maybe try the morning. But there's no right or wrong time. It's just a matter of what feels best and what seems to work for you.
Great. Thank you for your answer, Melissa. The other one is, can yoga help with Parkinson's?
It can. There's quite a bit of research about that. I have not personally worked with anyone with Parkinson's, but I do have some colleagues and peers that have, and have been able to have seen some good results. Obviously, you're not necessarily going to reverse everything, but it can help maintain a certain quality of or movement and that kind of thing. So I would definitely, if you look for, again, like with the arthritis, someone who specializes in that, or a specific sequence or class video, whatever that specializes there. But there are yoga therapists out there who specialize in working with Parkinson's patients.
Great.
I'm not one of them.
Yeah, great information, actually. Who is considered the founder of yoga, and what or where her religious background?
Oh, interesting question. Okay, so the Vedic texts were written over 4,000 years ago, and the Vedic texts are thought to be the original writings down. There's no one is necessarily identified as the founder. I have a book I should grab, because in the beginning it was just oral tradition. There was nothing actually written. The Vedic texts are thought to be the beginning. The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali that's sort of the go-to start of it all. So everything kind of comes out of the Yoga Sutras. That's a great book. There's a lot of really great translations that explain a lot of what I talked about in really vague terms. It explains it very clearly. So yoga originally was practiced in India. It's not considered a religion or affiliated with a religion. Obviously, it's prevalent within a lot of Hindu culture and custom, but it's not considered to be a part of Hinduism or Buddhism. And it does have elements of both, but is considered to be separate. I don't know for sure, but I would not be surprised if the original practitioners were Hindu.
Okay, thank you. There is another question. Are there any books or other materials you recommend to learn more about energetic anatomy?
Yes, I'm going to step away to the bookshelf for just a second.
No problem. And just a reminder, feel free to type your question or any concern you might have. We will make our best to answer your questions.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so the energetic anatomy, there are specific books. I don't have any of them with me, but this is a great book. It's called The Pure Heart of Yoga. The Pure Heart of Yoga, and it's written by Robert Butera, Butera. And this gets into some of that. It covers some of the energetic, but also some of the other stuff. The energetic anatomy, I would say probably there's a book called a yoga therapy manual that would be really helpful. And then for the question, this also covers quite a bit of it, what I was saying before about the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And this translation is by Sri Swami Sachinanda. So this covers that both things, the question previous and then the energetic anatomy.
Great, thank you. And the last question is, what is the best relaxation tip for panic attacks?
Okay, so the 3-part breath actually is the first thing that absolutely comes to mind. A little hard, you might have to modify the focus of that if you're like driving a car or something, but even in a grocery store or crowded, hopefully we're not in too many crowded areas these days, but the 3-part breath can absolutely flip that fight or flight and help control a panic attack. I've worked with several people who have anxiety and panic attacks, and that's the first thing I teach them, and tends to be their go-to and really can make a difference.
Great. Thank you so much, Melissa, for this great information. And thank you everyone for typing up your questions. Please feel free to reach out to her if you have any other question, as it says on the presentation. Again, thank you so much for joining us today, Melissa, and sharing with us the valuable information. As mentioned before, this holiday season will not be this season will not be the same for numerous reasons. But with your presentation, we now have some hope. Thank you for your advice and how to stay present and grateful. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. So before we close the webinar, let me share my screen to share with our participants our online resources, our NAMI NJ resources available. So if you go to get involved, you click become a member, and you can find out how to become a member. And if you go under programs, the COVID-19 support resources is gonna come up, and there is a lot of different resources which are very helpful and important during this difficult time. And at the end, there is our contact information for you and your family as well. So if you go under support, there are online support groups which are twice a week. Feel free. Here is the register button, and they are very helpful as well. So that being said, our programs are free of charge. And if you go to under events, there is the webinar series page. And here's the webinar that we are hosting today and past webinars that might be of your interest. And please feel free to view them anytime you feel free. And thank you again for joining us today. We will keep posting the recordings along with the presentation slides. And also remember to feel free to reach out to NAMI NJ for any support you might need or any question or any concerns. Thank you so much. And let me stop my screen now. Thank you again for sharing this hour with us here today. As a reminder, it would be appreciated if you complete the survey at the end of this webinar so that we can incorporate your feedback for future webinars. This concludes our webinar, and thank you all. Have a great day. Thank you.